The Athletic just ranked all 32 NHL teams' prospect pools, and guess where the Islanders are? Well, we've got that and a whole lot more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you can get new episodes as soon as they drop. Well, I'll tell you, we have got a lot to get to. Busy show today, but first, if there's something Islanders related on your mind, if you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email. The email address, lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we talk about whatever it is that's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you can follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all season long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis, and it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you, game time or anytime. We got some interesting news, to say the least, from The Athletic. And, every day, as you know, yesterday on the show, we discussed which teams The Athletic said, had the best chance of winning a cup in the next 5 years. And the Islanders ranked 29th out of 32 teams in that category. They gave them a 6% chance of winning a Stanley Cup in the next 5 seasons. Well, in a sort of related issue, the Athletic released their 2024 rankings of every NHL organization's prospects. And essentially, they're trying to figure out, who has the most players who can help the NHL team in their system. Now, the criteria, you had to be under 23 years old. So that eliminates Samuel Bolduc, for example, from this list. Can't be considered a full-time NHL player unless they are basically still possibly going to improve, and then they either have to be signed to an NHL contract or be in the have been drafted basically by an NHL team. And they went through almost 500 prospects. Now, Bolduc, I mentioned, cannot be included because of his age. Neither can Ruslan Ishkakov. So he's not included in this analysis and in this list. And look, we know that the Islanders, they were 27th last year on this list, but now the Islanders are dead last. And the quote in the article is that their pool, the Islanders prospect pool, is seriously lacking on upside and unlikely to produce more than depth pieces. The Islanders are the only pool in the league, ranked by The Athletic, without a top 100 prospect. Think about that. There are 32 teams, which means that if you spread the talent around evenly, every organization should have roughly 3 prospects in the top 100. The Islanders have none. We know that the Islanders do not have a third-round pick this year. They do not have a second-round pick in 2026. So, that's not going to help them. The recommendation in the article is that the Islanders should be all over college and junior free agents this spring to try to plug some of the holes in their system. And keep in mind that this list does include Simon Holmstrom. And that's a little bit surprising. He was ranked as the Islanders' 5th best prospect in the pool. But overall, having the Islanders ranked last is definitely, not looking good. And it really does come into more play when you consider the age on this roster and the number of guys with bad contracts and no trade clauses. It is still not impossible for either Lou Lamoriello or another general manager who will eventually succeed him, whether it's Chris Lamoriello or Patrick Waugh or somebody who is not presently in the Islanders organization. Regardless of that, it is not impossible for the successor to improve this number. Number one, you start acquiring prospects and picks and keep them and make picks. And you do that by trading away some veterans. And it'll be interesting to see what Lou Lamoriello's approach to the trade deadline is going to be this year. The Islanders have already traded away 4 consecutive first-round picks. And I'm not saying these deals were bad deals in and of themselves. I mean, what did you get from those 4 trades? You got Kyle Palmieri, you got Alexander Romanov, you got Bo Horvat. And you got JG Pageau. It's not like these players that you've acquired in these deals have not helped or contributed to the success of the team. And I would argue that Horvat is certainly one of the centerpieces of this team over the next 5 years. And Romanov probably will eventually join that group. He's, in my mind, a little outside of a foundational piece, but he can become one, depending on his development over the next year or two. The thing that's upsetting to me is that if you're going to trade away 5 or 4, in this case so far, consecutive first-round picks, you should be looking for that final piece or two of the puzzle that makes you a Stanley Cup contender. And what Lou Lamoriello has done is trade away 4 consecutive first-round picks to try to make the playoffs barely. And we heard Mathew Barzal before the season before it started, saying, I don't want to just squeak into the playoffs anymore. Well, guess what? Right now, barring an unbelievably ridiculous finish, and we had one of those last year, if you think about it, just to get into the playoffs, but barring an unbelievably ridiculous finish, it will take a strong finish to just squeak into the playoffs again this year. So right now, that seems to be the ceiling, and the prospect pool not where it has to be in order to really take things to the next level as this roster ages and as so many of these players have no trade clauses or modified no trade clauses or questionable contracts or both. It's upsetting. It's frustrating for Islanders fans. And this team, this organization, I will say this, if the Islanders continue to struggle and we get to the trade deadline, which is about a month away now, and the Islanders are not in it, maybe, just maybe, it's time to make some moves and trade some players away and add picks and prospects to try to rebuild this organization. Because if you don't, and again, this is if they're not in a good spot to make the playoffs come trade deadline, if you don't, you could end up in a major rebuild that could really be difficult for this team. All right, we have got a lot more to get to, and we'll talk more about who's in the top of the prospect pool and a whole lot more on tomorrow's show. But first, we are going to discuss the latest on Mathew Barzal and his participation in the All Star Weekend. We've got our weekly farm report, and for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a backup goalie who had one extremely memorable moment with the Islanders that will forever make him a part of Islanders history. Let's see if you can guess who that is. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at Jace Medical. I know we come to sports to escape from some of the crazy realities of real life, but can we just talk about being prepared for real life for a minute? According to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin right at the point of the year where people are most likely to get sick. And this is scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if one of my family members got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from the life-saving medication they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics to treat a long list of bacterial illnesses like UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, and others. And this stuff could happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com, complete your physician encounter. It'll be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today, so go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your first order. Today's episode is also brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. And there are so many ways for you to bet on FanDuel, so you can end the football season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. New customers join today. You'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. So, some good news for the Islanders. Mathew Barzal now going to take part in the skills competition at the NHL All Star Weekend. He was not originally expected to do that, but Jack Hughes of the New Jersey Devils injured, and they moved Barzal into that open spot, and he will be competing now in the skills competition. And look, in 2020, at that All-Star game 3 years ago, Barzy won the fastest skater competition. He had a time of 13.175, and that beat the defending champion at that time, some guy named Connor McDavid. So they're going to go back head-to-head for a rematch now in 2024. It's 4 years ago. Wow, time flies. There's a new format, and the 12 players involved will compete in all 8 events. So you're going to have the fastest skater, the hardest shot, the stick handling competition, one-timers, a passing challenge, shooting accuracy. They're going to have a shootout. I don't think any Islander would do well in that competition, and an obstacle course. And basically, the top 8-point earners will advance to another event, which is the shootout, and we'll see how that goes. So here's the deal. You get different points for different events. Here are the players who will be competing with Mathew Barzal at the All-Star Skills Competition. You got David Pastrnak of Boston, Nathan MacKinnon and Cale Makar from the Colorado Avalanche, Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid of Edmonton, Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning. You have Austin Matthews and William Nylander from the Toronto Maple Leafs, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, and Elias Pettersson of the Vancouver Canucks. Pretty elite company there for Mathew Barzal. And, I really thought about it. And I think that the reason that Mathew Barzal got chosen for the All-Star team over Noah Dobson, and I believe Dobber was the better choice. I mean, I think Dobson is right now the Islanders' half-season MVP. He's been their best player, in my opinion, so far all year. And we do have that poll still up, and we've had more than 300 votes so far. So feel free to visit our YouTube page and vote on that, who you think the Islanders' half-season MVP is. But I think they really chose Barzal over Dobber for the All-Star game because it really makes a difference in skills competition. And Barzy, because of his speed and his skating ability, I think gives the Islanders a better chance at representation in the skills competition. And again, he wasn't originally supposed to take part in it, but he does end up doing so. And, he was a much better fill-in, I think, than what Dobson would have been able to do. One quick procedural note, Kyle McLean was returned to Bridgeport. Now, that makes sense. Bridgeport playing a game tonight, Wednesday night. They've got their usual weekend schedule, while the New York Islanders are not playing until next Monday. So I guess if Casey Cizikas is able to return off IR, McLean will stay down. But if Cizikas isn't ready, they'll bring McLean back up. And he has played pretty well since being recalled, although he has yet to register a point. Meanwhile, I did want to touch on, and I hadn't, on the release of the Islanders Stadium Series jerseys. I just think they could have done so much better with them. They're really not anything special. I like the fact that it says Isles on the front, but the dark blue and the orange combination without the logo except on the shoulder patch, the colors, the way they kind of work, I don't think they're going to look particularly good. And, the players have to say, oh, yeah, Anders Lee, the captain, it looks nice and we're looking forward to wearing it. The biggest thing is it's a special event. It's a cool thing that we do get to play outdoors and play against the Rangers at MetLife. A lot of guys in the room haven't played in one, so it should be a great day. But overall, I just don't think these are particularly good or attractive looking, and I think they could have really done a better job overall with putting these jerseys together. But hey, feel free to comment and let me know what you all think about it. I was disappointed with the Stadium Series jerseys. I don't think they're awful, but they just could have done, I think, so much better. We have got a lot more to get to on today's show. We have our weekly farm report as we discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders, so make sure you stick around for that. And we've got our Islanders birthday of the day. I'm telling you, this is a goalie who didn't play a lot of games for the Islanders, but because of what he accomplished, he really did make his mark and will forever be remembered in Islanders history. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Factor. To get started on your resolutions with Factor so you're ready for the new year, Factor's ready-to-eat meal delivery takes the stress out of meal planning and sets you up for success in the new year. Skip the grocery stores, the prep work, and cooking fatigue. Instead, get chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals delivered right to your door. With over 35 meals to choose from per week, including options like keto, calorie smart, vegan and veggie, and more, plus over 55 weekly add-ons, you'll have a ton of nutritious and flavorful options to kickstart your resolutions. Factor now offers also loads of snack options like breakfast smoothies, juices, snacks, and more to keep you going no matter what's on the schedule. Skip the overpriced takeout trap. Factor is cheaper and way more delicious than takeout. You can get chef-crafted, restaurant-quality meals delivered right to your door. They're ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes, which means more time for you. So, Factor has everything I need for a week of flavorful, nutritious eats. In addition to ready-to-eat meals, they have cold-pressed juices, smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and more to keep me energized during frantic times. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 and use code LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. That's code LockedOnNHL50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnNHL50 to get 50% off. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Time for our weekly farm report as we discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders. And it was a rough weekend for Bridgeport. They had 2 games with the Providence Bruins, and they didn't really fare well in either. On the first game, they end up losing to Providence in Providence by a score of 6-3. Goals for Cole Bardreau, Eetu Liukas, and Mathew Barzal. Otto Koivula had 2 assists, and Bardreau also had an assist. Jakub Skarek, 28 saves, but his record drops to 3-16-4. That was the 5th straight win for the Providence Bruins at home, while the Islanders continue to struggle. The second half of the home and home, a 3-1 loss for the Islanders to the Providence Bruins, this time in Bridgeport. Henrik Tikkanen was the goalie, but a 3-1 loss. Tikkanen making 33 saves, kept Providence off the board for 52 minutes, but it wasn't enough. Dennis Chalowski scoring the only goal of the game for Bridgeport. Matt Maggio and Carlson Kuhlman with the assist. Bridgeport 0 for 6 on the power play. And by the way, the last goal was an empty netter. You look at the standings right now. Bridgeport, again, a distant 8th in the Atlantic Division of the AHL, 11-24-5 on the season. That's a .338 points percentage. And unfortunately, that places them last in the American Hockey League. They've got to do a little bit better in their last 10, 2, 5, and 3. Ruslan Ishkakov remains the leading scorer. He leads the team in goals with 13, in points with 33, and in assists with 20. He is across the board their leader. Otto Koivula, 8 goals, 24 points. Dennis Chalowski, 5 goals, 20 points. Robin Salo, same, 5 goals, 20 points. Kyle McLean, 6 goals, 19 points. William Dufour now with 10 goals in just 28 games. He's a Cy Young candidate, 10 goals, 4 assists. So he's still working. And Matthew Maggio in 32 games, 5 goals and 10 points. Goaltending, well, Jakub Skarek, as we mentioned, 3-16 and 4, just a 3.48 goals against and an 881 save percentage. It's a busy week ahead. There will be 2 home games and 1 road game this week. The first home game is tonight against the Springfield Thunderbirds. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time start, and it'll wrap up, obviously, the month of January for Bridgeport. Then Springfield returns on Friday night. That's a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And then Saturday, it's a road game for Bridgeport. They travel to Hershey to face the Hershey Bears. That is a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And you can watch all of these games on AHL TV. And if you want to catch some of the Islanders' top prospects before they reach Long Island, head on up to Bridgeport and check out the Bridgeport Islanders. Always fun to watch AHL hockey. You're always so close to the action. It is time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And we are a day late with this one. Tuesday was the 45th birthday of former Islanders goalie Wade Dublowitz. Doobie from Saskatchewan, Corobert, Saskatchewan. I hope I'm pronouncing that okay. Wasn't drafted, went to the University of Denver at 5'10", 180. He's a little small for a modern goalie. Joined the Islanders in the 2003-2004 season, spent most of the year at Bridgeport, filled in for 2 games with the Isles. But his big moment came in 2006-2007. That year, he only played 8 games for the Islanders. But, well, we'll get to this, how well he did and how big he came up for the team. Was with the Islanders through the 07-08 season, then spent a year in the KHL, a little time with Columbus, a little time with Minnesota, finished up his career in Germany in 2010-2011. Doobie only played 43 career NHL games. His numbers are solid, 265 goals against, a 914 save percentage. But his magic moment with the Islanders, April 8th, 2007, in New Jersey at the Continental Airlines Arena. Doobie, the goalie for the Islanders, Scott Clemenson, the goalie for the New Jersey Devils. And this game, essentially, Islanders held a 2-0 lead on a couple of goals by Richard Park, but John Madden scores 2 goals late in the third to tie it. Nobody scores in overtime, so we go to a shootout. And what happens? Well, in the shootout, the Islanders end up taking the lead, but in the end, last-ditch attempt and a poke check on John Madden by Dublowitz, a poke check rather, by Dublowitz, ends up winning the game for the New York Islanders, and with that win, they clinched a playoff berth. Dublowitz, by the way, now the general manager of the Columbia Valley Rockies of the KIJHL. That is a junior league, so he is still active in hockey. But boy, a magic moment for the Islanders, who squeaked into the playoffs despite an injury to Rick DiPietro and having to rely on Dublowitz. And Doobie came up big in the clutch. So Wade Dublowitz is our Islanders birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Everydayers, tomorrow on the show, we will talk a little bit more about the prospect pool, some of the players in it, and we'll have all the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings as well. So make sure you join us for that. Until then, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.